Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this class. Today, we were going to talk about punishments, rewards, bribes, and threats. This is such a hot topic because I've noticed a trend where a lot of us may have been parented and punished, rewarded a lot. I think rewarded sometimes is even bigger than being punished, bribed, or threatened. And as parents, a lot of us are trying to move out of those patterns, but we don't know how to. Some of us, we we haven't learned another way. So let's talk about this topic. Let's understand why we resort to them. And why we don't usually feel great when we use them and what we can do differently. So, um, we're going to talk about all of them as kind of like a one topic thing. Each one is individual. A lot of questions I usually get asked are, like, is rewarding really bad? Punishments are maybe parents understand it more because they're a lot of times they're harsh and a child is feeling badly after a punishment, but rewards are different or bribes are different because the child is getting something, so they're happy at the end of it. So it's a lot easier for a parent to feel like, oh yay, my child's happy, I'm good with it. So we're going to kind of try to approach it all as like one broad subject. The underlying theme and the underlying concept being that when we use an outside tactic to gain cooperation with our children, then we're not actually building, deepening, strengthening our relationship with our children. We're relying on something beyond the bounds of our relationship, beyond, our connection and our trust and our respect for each other. And this is really the main point and the main challenge around using these tactics. Okay, we are not giving ourselves as parents enough credit, because as parents, if we look for the guidance and we give ourselves patience, we can absolutely create a relationship with our children where we don't need to resort to anything beyond our relationship with them, the communication and the trust and respect that we have. Punishments, rewards, even bribes and threats are all us looking for something beyond ourselves to facilitate that cooperation. But really, we we want to get to a place where we have like this beautiful trusting relationship that really lasts with our children, so we don't need to resort to those outside tactics. So just really quickly, I asked my Instagram followers a few questions about this topic. And I just want to share that 72% of the people who responded to the poll said that they use these tactics as a last resort. 70% said that they feel bad after using them. And 93% of you are looking for another strategy, another way. So that tells me that when you use them, you don't feel 100% with them for the most part, right? Like, that you want another way. And I think that's just really important to know, because whether or not you realize why you want another way, there's something inside of you that's telling you, like, this isn't really making a lasting impression with my children. When we approach parenting from a conscious place, it's not always about finding the answer in the short term, this moment, how can I relieve the pain? It's really about creating a long-term relationship. Yes, that might be challenging right now, but ultimately it's going to limit the challenges that we have with our children in the future. And it's going to help them grow as human beings, and us too, for parents. So the first question I'd like to pose, right, to ask: when we use the tactics of punishing, rewarding, bribing, and threatening, who is it really for? Who is it really for? Is it really for our children, or is it really for ourselves as a parent? Now, from meeting with clients, meeting with parents, and getting lots of questions, there are basically four reasons why parents resort to these tactics that I've found. The first is to assert their authority, right? The second is to teach a lesson, right? My child is not getting this lesson, I need to punish them so that they'll learn. The third is because I need my child to do something and they're not doing it. And the fourth is just, I have no idea what else to do. This is the only thing that works, so I'm just gonna do it. So if those, and I would love to hear if there are, other reasons why you use these tactics, but essentially the underlining thing is to regain control, right? How can I gain control within this relationship? How can I power over my children so that I can get them to do what I need them to do when I want them to do it? Children are human beings. Human beings, ask yourself, right? Human beings don't respond well to being, to having someone in power over them. When you feel like a boss is just telling you what you need to do, or any authority figure, and you don't have any say in it, you're kind of being cornered into doing it. That is not an empowering feeling. It doesn't make us feel more self-confident or believe more in ourselves, right? If someone's saying, I'm trying I'm trying to think of a good example, right? But like if someone's telling you to do something that you don't want to do, but they say, but if you do it, I'll give you $1,000,000. Or even let's lower it a little, I'll give you $1,000. But that's $1,000, that looks really good. So am I going to do what I don't want to do in order to get the $1,000? Something maybe that's beyond my value system, my integrity, something I really don't want to do. And so you're kind of like, what's happening to us in that moment is we're being like, our back is up against the wall. And which one looks more enticing? So we're not actually making the choice from our soul, from what's really important to us. We're making the choice from, like, which one do I want to grab more? It's really what we're teaching our children. When we punish them, reward them, bribe or threaten them, we're like putting them up against the wall and making them choose, like, what do I want more? To listen to myself, or to have my freedom, my autonomy, my independence, my self-governance? Or do I want that thing that's being dangled in front of me, that candy bar that's going to get me to change my mind and distract me from what it is that I feel and I think? Now, we definitely, absolutely want to teach our children how to cooperate and build that trust. We will get to that. But let's just understand, like, what we're doing when we're using these tactics. We're really trying to regain control. And oftentimes I asked, who is it for? Is it for the parent or the child? Oftentimes it's really for the parent. It's because I need them to do something right now. I'm not figuring out another way. And I just like, it's got to be quick. But that's not, unfortunately, the way to build that relationship built on mutual respect. Because what happens, and a lot of parents are very willing to admit in the same breath that they say that they need to assert their authority and teach their child a lesson and regain control, that it doesn't make them feel good as a parent when they use these tactics. They find themselves in the same recurring challenges all the time, right? And at some point, your 5-year-old is going to become 8 and is going to be like, I don't want a chocolate bar. I'm just not going to do it. You're going to have to, up those rewards, up those bribes. Make the threats a lot bigger. I don't care. Send me to my room. I'd rather be in my room by myself than be out here with you anyway. Right? Parents are very willing to admit that it's not helping them grow and deepen their relationship with their children and their connection. They notice that their child feels bad when they use these tactics, right? The child is not choosing to be cooperative. The child is being forced to be cooperative. The child is being forced to be respectful. The child's not really being respectful. They're not really learning kind of that lesson. I'm not really teaching my child. I'm not really fostering that internal growth. As parents, ultimately, our goal is all the same, right? We want to build long-lasting relationships with our children and create an environment where our children can thrive and grow into the best possible people that they can. So not using these tactics might require some extra patience, research, support, asking questions. But if we focus on building communication and connection, not parenting from a power place, right? Trying to like imagine a giant is looming over you and telling you have to do something. That's just scary. And it's using a position of power to get what you want, right? That's not building trust. As parents, we need to believe in ourselves that we don't need to resort to those tactics. We have within us everything we need to come up with to be creative and to build that communication and trust and respect that we really want to create with our children. So I'd like to take a few minutes to reframe those reasons for why we would like to use punishments, rewards, bribes, and threats, right? We shared that, you know, for a lot of parents, they want to regain control and assert their authority. What does it mean? I want to assert my authority. If as a parent in a moment, I want to assert my authority and get my child to do something, I want them to know I'm in control. I need to set limits and boundaries, right? What are we actually thinking as a parent? If that's our thought, let's approach that thought from a conscious place. What are we really asking for? What are we really needing as parents when we want to set limits and boundaries and show our child who's in control? I'm saying I want to feel heard and I want to be respected. I want my child to trust my judgment and understand that when I say no, there's a reason, right? I want my child to understand that actions have consequences. So what I'm doing with this reframe is I'm taking this, like, I want them to know who's in control. And so I need to set limits and boundaries. By the way, parents use that a lot. Boundaries is a whole other topic we'll get into, but telling my child no, setting a limit is not a boundary. Okay. Just to be really clear, a boundary is actually like a healthy boundary is something a child knows, like it's based off of our value system of what's important to us and our family. And it's something that's meant to really be deeply understood in our minds and our body as a human being. Like, I feel my personal boundaries. That's really a boundary. We don't set boundaries when we tell a child what they can and can't do. That's why it doesn't work. But the reframe is, right, it's like, okay, I want to assert control. Really what I want is to be heard. I really want to feel respected. And I want my children to trust my judgment. When I tell them that there is something that they can't do or something that needs to get done, I really want them to trust me that I know what I'm talking about. Okay, so the question is, how can we then build that trust? Right? Another reframe. We said a lot of parents, believe that they want to use these tactics because they want to teach their child a lesson. Right? So what's the reframe behind teaching our child a lesson? Right? My child has to understand that they can't get away with certain behavior. So reframe in your mind. My child can't get away with this behavior. Are you in public? Do you feel embarrassed? Or are you in private and you feel really embarrassed and like astonished that your child would behave a certain way? I can't believe that something that came from me is behaving this way, right? That they're related to me. I'm the one who's supposed to be nurturing them and teaching them. And they have this behavior. They can't go out into the world and behave like that, right? They have to learn to be responsible and be safe and be a contributing member of a society and have respect for people and decorum. My child behaves like that. I need to teach them a lesson because they can't behave like that and be my kid. So again, what is it really about? Is it about in that moment the child, or where's our mind going? Is our mind going to, oh my gosh, did I create that? I need to teach them a lesson. But let's reframe it. We want to teach them a lesson, of course, but really what's like going off in our minds in that moment? And that's something that's really important to notice as conscious parents. Whenever we get triggered, is what are we starting to think about ourselves? What do we think about our kids in that moment? What are the judgments that we hold? Right. Another one that we said is that a lot of times parents will resort to the tactics because it's the only way I can get my child to do X, Y, or Z. Right. But it doesn't really help to deepen and grow my connection and trust with my child. Right. It also maybe it's the only way I can get them to do it. I wonder what my child is believing about themselves. I wonder what it's teaching them. Really, what I'm asking for as a parent is cooperation, communication, trust, respect, right? So we can reframe that in our mind when we think it's the only way I can get my child to do something. Maybe there is another way. It's not that it's the only way. It's the only way that I've thought of until this moment. So let's expand our minds and think, how could we do this differently? And then we also said that a lot of times as parents, we just don't know what else to do, right? We don't know what else to do. I feel, and we can reframe that thought to noticing our feelings. I'm losing patience and I feel frustrated and I want to figure out how to handle this in the best way. a huge secret to conscious parenting, to navigating parenting in a conscious way is, and something I work with so much on with my clients, with my coaching clients, because it's actually one of the hardest things for us to do as human beings, is to notice our feelings, notice why we're being triggered, and to sit with them and to not blame them on someone else, namely in this situation, our children. When we see our child misbehaving or not doing what it is that we want them to do, lots of feelings are going to come up, a lot of feelings. Now, it's a huge step in parenting to be able to connect with those feelings, to notice them, to feel them, to acknowledge them, and to accept them, and to be able to sit with them and then not blame our child for them. It takes a lot of practice, but you can start now. You can start today, right? Notice the feeling, let it rise up within you. Notice it and feel it and talk to it. And don't get reactive to it. Don't jump on it and like, oh my God, I feel this uncomfortable feeling and I need to take it out on someone. My child is there. They're not doing what I want. They're the cause of this bad feeling. I'm going to, I have to deal with it right away. Just notice your feeling, acknowledge your feeling. This is the reframe that we can start to think about if we want to be people who don't resort to these tactics that many of us believe, I really think, don't actually work, right? The reframe is, what am I noticing inside of myself? Now, let's give you some practical steps. What do? I'm in a really challenging moment with my child. I want to resort to punishments, rewards, bribes, or a threat. I know that they're not really going to work. I know that they're not going to lead me to lasting connection and a deep relationship with my child, but what can I do? What can I do? Because the truth is I do need to get out the door to school, right? Or whatever it might be. So the first thing is what I just mentioned, is to have patience with yourself and notice your feelings, right? Notice what it is that is coming up for you. And if you don't know what to do in that moment, it's also okay. We don't lose credibility with our children by taking some space. Okay, there's nothing wrong with coming back a few minutes later, like our child is freaking out about something and we think it's really disrespectful. We don't have to have an answer for them. Punishments, rewards, bribes, and threats usually come up because it's like I'm grasping for an answer right now. I need to figure it out in this moment. We don't always need to figure it out. Sometimes, our best ideas come to us, first of all, when we're calm, which is usually not in that moment, but also by giving it some thought, asking what is it that our child needs in this moment. Okay, so we don't need to have an answer in the moment. It doesn't define who we are as parents. What does define who we are as parents is how much conscious effort we put into our relationship with our children. That's it. So you don't need to have just because they're speaking disrespectfully right now doesn't mean that they need to be punished in the moment. Doesn't mean that you have to figure out the solution in the moment. And I know that's really hard not to, because we want to have a solution right now. We don't need to. It's part of being able to sit with those uncomfortable feelings. It's to know that okay, I'm noticing how I feel. I don't need to have an answer right now. Once we have calmed down and we have taken space, I really truly believe that you have within you the ability to build that communication with your child. Sometimes we need extra support, which is what coaching is for, which is what these classes are for, right? How can I access that, what I like to call internal parenting compass, that intuition that can guide me to figure out how to build that communication with my child. But I really believe that you have it within you to speak to them, to be able to communicate with your child, to build cooperation. But it's going to come when you've calmed down, when you're not connected with those deep triggering emotions. So give yourself some space and time, right? Remember that your children, they know how to behave. Children know how to behave. They know right from wrong. If they're behaving disrespectfully or they're not getting ready for school, there's a reason. There's always a reason. They want to be heard. They want to be seen. They're looking for something. And part of our detective work as parents is to help figure that out. But once we do, we're going to see that we don't want to punish them. We don't need to offer them a reward or a bribe. And we don't want to threaten them because they have all of these feelings that are around, that are surrounding whatever it is that they're going through. That's, creating this space where they are disrespectful, or they're not listening, or they're not cooperating, right? Where they're acting in an untrustworthy way. There's something going on inside of them. And it's our job to dig into it. If we do, we're going to see that we don't even want to resort to those, because there's a way to do it differently, but also we can actually help our child to grow, to work through whatever it is that they're struggling with, right? Another great thing to do is to communicate our own feelings with our children, right? Like why their behavior or their speech, the words that they choose, the actions they're choosing are making us feel uncomfortable. You know, for instance, if by not studying for your test, I really worry that you're going to be really stressed out when you get to that test, or you're going to, start the test and get and 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 fail, and then feel really bad about yourself afterwards and regret it, because you could have done so well if you had studied. So I'm really worried about that, or the fact that you're not eating, the food at meals, and you're just snacking, I just wonder how your body's going to be able to handle that. How is it going to, support you and give you strength and the power that you need to get through your day? Share whatever it is that makes you feel uncomfortable about your children's speech and behavior, because it helps your child to meet you as a human being and to understand, oh wow, my actions have consequences, my actions have repercussions, they're making someone who I love, is feeling a certain way about me. Maybe there's a validity to taking the time to to excuse me, to choose to behave in a different way. Now, we want to, like I said, we want to kind of like build that bridge, meet our children where they are, figure out why it is that they're behaving or speaking in a certain way. And so there are a few different ways that we can use our words to build that communication and empowerment. The first is we can say something like, it looks like you might be feeling angry, sad, frustrated. Is that right? Is that something you'd like to talk about, or do you need space? Just acknowledging their feeling. Ask, first of all, not assuming what it is that they feel, but acknowledging it and asking it, is that right? That can be really helpful. Then, remembering that they have had their own day or days, like what happened up until this point that's triggering them, that's upsetting them, that's causing them to not want to cooperate. Maybe they don't want to go do their schoolwork, turn off the TV and go do their schoolwork because they're afraid to start it because they didn't pay attention in school, right? So what is it that happened up until now that's really bothering your child, right? And then we want to ask them, what do you need from me to support you? How can I support you right now? Okay, so you shared that you're angry. This is what happened until now. How can I support you through this? What do you need from me? Because you do need to start your schoolwork. So how can I help you in this moment? We do need to get to school. We do need to turn off the TV. What do you need? Would you like to turn it off on your own, or would you like me to do it for you? Like, is it too hard to get there, to do it? What can I do to support you in this? And we always want to remember to interact with our children with empathy and compassion and understanding. When they're behaving in a way that makes us uncomfortable, again, there's a reason. And so we want to allow them. It's like it's straddling two places, because it's allowing them to have their feelings, it's allowing them to express, to do things in their own way. Of course, teaching them at the same time that this behavior isn't okay. You do have responsibilities, but really having empathy for the fact that they don't want to do their schoolwork. It's boring, maybe, or school isn't a happy place for me right now because there are kids that aren't being nice to me, right? Like to really have empathy and compassion for where they are. It doesn't mean that they don't go to school or they don't start that schoolwork, but if we can extend our hearts and our child knows that they're not alone in this, and they really feel we're there holding them through this uncomfortability, it's very, very, we build so much the chances and the likelihood that they will trust us, that they will communicate with us, and they will cooperate with us because they feel us there holding space for them. Now, really quickly before we finish, I just want to touch on this idea of natural consequences, because I know that this is something parents ask about a lot, right? It's different than a punishment. A punishment is kind of more along the lines of like, oh, you're not listening to me, no iPad for the week. Oh, you got a bad grade on the test, stay in your room, you have to stay in your room. You hit your sister, I'm taking away that toy, or you're not allowed to go on that play date or that sleepover, whatever it might be. Those are punishments. Natural consequences are something more along the lines of, I noticed that you can't you have a really hard time turning the TV off to start your schoolwork. So I think we're just not going to turn the TV off until schoolwork is done. You can watch TV, but not before. It has to be after, because it's just really hard for you to turn it off, right? We're not making a judgment call on your child as a person, but we are, just naturally, like, it just seems like this isn't working for us. It's not working for us to turn the TV on before school starts, or, you're being like, two children aren't getting along and it's getting physical and violent. I just think the natural thing is that you just, like, you need to take space from each other right now. You each need to go into a different part of the house and do something that makes you feel good, like, to help you calm down. I'm not punishing you. I'm not sending you away. You don't have to go to your room and be by yourself, and from a bad place, but, like, you really need to take space right now. You really need to calm down. So there's a difference between punishments and natural consequence. And natural consequence is something that is just like, I just see that we can't handle this right now, and so in all of our best interests, we're not going to have it. We're not going to go there. So I hope you got something from this. I'd love to hear from you. Let me know if you have more questions on this topic, if you have any suggestions, ideas, or what you would like to hear in the future. And I hope you have a wonderful day.